Hello and welcome to Awakened with Lea, the next chapter. I'm your host, Lea, and this show is about bringing to the forefront diverse guests who have experienced adversity and major or minor transitions in life so that we can provide our viewers with courage, confidence, and tangible tools to navigate any challenge in life with the lived experience and wisdom of our guests. Hello and welcome to Awakened with Lea, the next chapter. I am excited to introduce everybody to Walter Aguilar. Hello and welcome.
Well, welcome, Lea. Thank you for inviting me. I've been thinking about this for the last little while. I'm very excited to be able to share a bit of my story. So thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure to have you here. And so Walter is the founder of Power versus Force Coaching, and you are a performance transition and leadership coach.
Correct. And it's been doing this for the last 6 years, and have worked with athletes, executives. I've worked with couples, just a variety of people. I guess I was one of the coaches that never really truly niched out. I believe when my phone rings, whoever needs the support, I'm here to do that. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for being here. So, Walter, can you share some experiences that you've had in life that deeply shaped who you are today?
Yeah, I'm really excited about sharing this particular experience because it's been probably, not probably, it has been the most profound year of my life this past year. I've been a special needs dad for essentially 19 years, almost 20 years. And about 4 months ago, my son passed away. And it was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever gone through. But it was also been one of the most um, biggest opportunities for me to grow. And I think that as a coach, it's really easy to be on the other side of it, where people are needing the support. Um, but it's different when you're actually the one going through it. It's like I always say, it's where you have to drink your own Kool-Aid, and you really have to really put into practice a lot of things that we work through with people, and I think that passing of a son, and our son, it was just an incredible story. Even the way we got him, the connection we built up with him, because he wasn't our biological son. He was we got him when he was 14 months old. He was in care, and they had no idea of his medical issues and what have you. We just kind of went in there, and as soon as I picked him up, he smiled at me, and so I always tell people he chose me. And so we took him home, and it was also supposed to be just short term, and it turned out to be an incredible journey. They suspected they had no real life expectancy for him. They thought he might live to be 10 years old. If that he got 10 years, they thought that that'd be amazing. There was just so many different things. He was nonverbal. Just think about everything that he was one of the chromosome deletion babies. So when that happens, a lot of other conditions happen. So it was a constant discovering of new conditions that he had as he was going on there. But he was just such a happy kid in general. He was just so he was just such a mindful, because he all the way through the whole age, he never really got past about three or four cognitive. He was nonverbal, but he was just so much in the present moment, and he was just a joy to be around. So for him to live 1 month short of his 21st birthday was amazing.
I
And
could see the joy in your face when you're talking about him, um, and a very key word that you just mentioned, being present in the moment. You really learned what being present in the moment meant. So I'd love for you to talk more about that.
Yeah, I think at the time when we had him, I was still working outside the home. I've done variety of jobs, but I was in sales. I was always doing sales, land sales, and different types of sales jobs. And I would always come home, and I would, no matter what my day was like. Best part of my day was where we just kind of we just laid on the carpet, looked at the ceiling, and played patty cakes. We just kind of played patty cakes, and he when he was younger, he tended to giggle a lot, so he was a giggler. And what I started to notice is that when he was healthy, he was happy. When he wasn't healthy, he wasn't happy. And it got me to thinking. I'm going, man. Sometimes even when we're healthy, we're not happy, right? And I've always had mentors growing up, but I've always been intrigued. One of my early influences was Anthony DeMello, who wrote on awareness. And so I've always had this attraction to awareness, and then I got into the Eckhart Tolle Power of Now and the John Kabat-Zinn mindfulness, and just the idea of mindfulness is choosing to be in the present moment on purpose without judgment or label.
Oh, I love that. Can you repeat that? I love that.
John Kabat-Zinn, who's considered like the grandfather, I guess the contemporary grandfather of mindfulness, is choosing to be in the present moment on purpose without judgment or label. And when I was with my son, I realized that he did that. He was always in the present moment. He didn't label things. Physically, if he wasn't feeling well, you can tell he emotionally showed that he was in discomfort or what have you. But when he was healthy, he was just a happy little boy. And so as time went on, I think that my connection with him grew. And it's because of him that, and as his conditions started to get to decline and had more conditions, I realized that being outside the home for those 8 or 10 hours wasn't working for my wife because he needed 24/7 care. And she was on the board of directors, and one day said, "Hey, we had a presentation from a coach. They're going to need coaches down the road." And that's where I thought, okay, that's great, and I could work from home.
Yeah.
So I actually looked up different coaching schools, and IPAC came up. The Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, where you're very familiar with as well.
Yes.
And they talked about energy, and and it really resonated with me because I was an ex-athlete, played football, ice hockey, especially being up here in Canada, everybody plays hockey.
Yeah.
And so I went out and got certified in that, and what I realized through a lot of what IPEC was teaching was that it was very, very much in line with what I was noticing, and the idea that if we can be more mindful, we can access our creativity, our intuition. It really was a natural transition, and I had one of the greatest teachers in my son. So if I wondered what it's like to be in the present moment and find joy in that moment, I can always look to him. And so I went on and started coaching, and I was able to I started doing Zoom before everybody else was doing Zoom, and so I was able to start to carve out a bit of a career from home, and all the way through it, I've never um, I've had an opportunity to work with an NHL team, with the government. I've had some really just incredible opportunities, but my son was always my priority. Like I had no aspirations to be in the next Anthony Robbins and all that, or being a mindful skills coach for an NHL. I thought that's what I wanted, but the more and more I connected with my son, I realized that I didn't want that, because me doing that and having to go outside of the home would be less time with him. And but on the other hand, I also struggled with the fact that I thought that he was also the reason why I couldn't get to that next level. So I kind of struggled with that, and so what happened was that there's a time I left for a while. I was overwhelmed. I think that people really need to understand that having a special needs child is such a difficult. It's one of the um, most joy you could find in your life, but also the most difficult thing you can do. It takes its toll on your marriage, on your finances, on everything. And so, anyways,
What beliefs did you have to shift in order to move forward from that challenge of thinking it's the best gift and then also thinking I'm not able to potentially coach who you would like to coach?
um, I think what happened was that I had to just really understand that everything I was going through had a purpose. And I think that as far as understanding who I needed to coach, a shift was really um, I just seeing that coaching became something that I did, not who I was.
Oh, I love that.
And what I started to do is I think my son really taught me really more about who I truly am. Every time I was around him, I always felt his unconditional love for me. I felt that I felt a better person than I did sometimes in my own mind. You know, those inner critics that go in there. Because prior to me becoming a coach, I actually left my marriage for 3 months and hit a dark night of the soul. And that's where I came back and realized that this is what I wanted. I wanted him. I wanted my wife. And so when I came back, I started to realize that he wasn't just a child that we were taking care of. He was my son. And we spent so many I don't know how many hospital visits. I mean, he was always I was in all the operating rooms. I was everywhere. And as long as he could I have eye contact with me, he was good. He was just like everything his world was good, and he didn't realize that for me, as long as I could have eye contact with him, everything was good. And so we were connected at such a deep level. Like I said, he just made me feel better of who I truly was. Like he just really when I seen him, he just everything that he did, because he had so many disabilities. When I'd walk by and he'd grab me and want me to put his hand behind his head, and he'd give great hugs. He'd kind of stick his hand in your shirt and and I always tell people that he would actually, when he hugged you, he kind of tapped you. And I believe that what it was is that he was having pity on us. Oh, all you humans are stuck in the past and the future. I really believe that if he was cognitive enough, he would call us special needs.
Wow.
And he was kind of he was a real teacher. And I always believed that when he was that he taught all those that were willing to listen and kind of get beyond what the norms were. And a lot of people did learn from him. What were you gonna say?
Which circles back to you speaking to being present in the moment. Because when we're present in the moment, we allow those gifts to come in. And it sounds like he taught you uh, so much. Um, well, it more like he taught you as much as you taught him, and he helped you as much as you helped him. Yeah. But it's like you said, it's being present in the moment, and a lot of acceptance had to happen there as well. So it's very common to reach a stage where we're just so confused. So as you said, you stepped away from everyone for 3 months, and that is not to be judged. It was actually you looking out for your, what do you need in order to be there for everybody else? And that's an important self-compassion point that I want to make here.
Yeah. And it's I think like I literally experienced the dark night of the soul in that period of time, where I felt forsaken by God. I felt hopeless, helpless. We talk about the energy levels. I was in level one, and but when I came back and I was able to start coaching and just really looking at my son with new eyes. I think it really made a big difference. And what happened, and fast forward now, 3 years ago, he had an emergency surgery where they removed they removed a big part of his small intestine, and so he lost 2/3 of his weight. And I remember being in the ICU and having the end of life conversations and how difficult that was. And and he lived 3 years after that. And he was always a tapper. He had his little drums, and he always loved to tap, and he loved music. I we would connect through music. I loved because I'm from Guatemala, so I love a lot of the Spanish music. I've had friends who are kind of famous Cuban musicians, and he just loved everything. He loved everything about music. I would get him on hooked on salsa, merengue. Every once in a while, I throw in some opera. He just had and he just loved music. He loved lights. He just had and we got to we got to really have 3 incredible years. And then what happened was the last year everything um, started to decline. He had lost 2/3 of his small colon that actually we were basically having to do all the tubes and everything, and we had like a little mash unit, but he was still incredible. And that was just it was a really challenging year, um, because we knew the end was coming. And what happened was that I started to really start to get afraid. But anytime I would get afraid, because I was a coach, I knew that if I just got in the moment, I knew the discipline of fearlessness, that fear requires a past or a future to exist. So I would just get myself into the moment, combine that with um, all the program that I have as a man, playing athletes, right? If you have a pain, suck it up. Emotions are weakness, vulnerability is not to be had. Like it was everything combined would continue to kind of play with me, and I wouldn't allow myself to go there to think of when he was going to pass, even though everything. I mean, we had so many hospital stays. I mean, it was just like everything was pointing that it was a matter of time. And so one of the things that I had that I came to um, my mind was that I loved him so much that if I wasn't able to feel the grief that was about to come, that it would tear me up inside. And also because if I couldn't face it, I didn't know if I can continue coaching, because I would feel like such a phony. I, I just knew in my heart that I needed to figure out a way to feel this, because as a man, I was always the one who crisis management. When I was younger, I was a team leader at a probation school, where if you're dealing with at-risk youth, there's always craziness going on, and I've always been the one that kind of kept it together.
So it sounds like the beliefs that you made a very conscious choice to remove is suck it up, don't show emotion, and explain how powerful it was to remove those beliefs.
Well, I think the thing about it, I started to realize that I couldn't do it alone. But what happened was there was I call these things that happen in our lives, the sacred synchronistic moments, I call them. And 3 years prior to that, I went to a fundraiser for a camp choice for youth that go to camp and get taught how to make conscious choices and what have you. And I met this lady, and we had a great chat about what I did. And she was a lady. She said, um, she told my friend who invited me that she was really impressed with me, and she was hoping that I would meet her son one day. And it so happened that this past July, I actually met him. Uh, I met him and I found out that he was a gentleman that would work. He would do ceremonies with people,
Mhm.
and I kind of inadvertently ran into him because there's another coach who I did an ELI assessment for a client, and then told me about how our client went to him and got some good results. So I thought, hey, great, I might be able to refer somebody to him, right? Because there's always people that got stuff they got to go through, and so. And as a coach, we're not necessarily doing therapy or healing, although we do end up doing some healing. But really, it's about when I went and had a coffee with them, and I was just talking about, I come across clients like this, and all of a sudden, he said, I got an intuitive hit that our meeting is more about you. And he opened up and he kind of called me out on it. I said, yeah, honestly, I think I started telling him about my son and that he's about to pass, and I don't know how to handle it. And so he we got together again, and he said, well, let me think about that. And then I finally said, I actually felt that he could have gone at any day. That was back in July. And so we agreed that we were going to do a ceremony, and which involved me being blindfolded for about 8 hours. And there was music, incense, and the whole bit, and there's a really meditative state. And in this dream, I realized that there was a point where, as a skinny little brown kid from Guatemala, I had a really scary nightmare where I actually experienced. I was very much into superheroes back in the day.
Yeah.
I call it the dance of the Superman skeletons. My mom had gone to Canada. I was there all alone, and all these skeletons showed up dressed up as Superman, and it scared the wits out of me. And that was my scariest moment. So I actually, in that ceremony, I went back there. But what happened was that I remember our son. He loved the wind. He loved everything. And every time he had the wind, he always did his hands, and he always kind of played with the wind and what have you. And during that ceremony, I was so scared that there was like sweat just coming out of my palms. And I remember what he did, and I started doing that and letting that, because there's a little fan on. I was just able to just kind of like just let all the fear just kind of fall off my palms. And then at one moment, I actually asked for a glass of water, and I had a little cramp in my stomach. And when I went to just do a deep breathing, because during that meditative state, I used everything from the Ho'oponopono self-identity to the deep breathing to the nostril breathing. I used every meditative tool that I had, but at this time, I actually put my hand on there and did some deep breathing. And I remember breathing in and then breathing out. As I breathed out, my stomach went concave, and I remembered, because remember our son lost a lot of his weight. You could almost feel his ribs. And what I realized at that moment is that he was with me. He actually went with me to my little skinny brown kid into that particular nightmare. And my mentor actually taught me that you can breathe through any emotion. You can just breathe, because the only constant in life is change. And if you continue to breathe, no matter what emotion is. So me and him actually sat with my little skinny brown kid, and we breathed through that scariest moment. And and through that whole process, he actually let me know that him leaving was only going to make me stronger.
Which is a hard concept uh, to trust in that moment.
Yeah.
Uh, and I just want to ask you, so the ceremony, is it specifically for um, preparing yourself?
That
Or
was a lot of it was that I asked for that intention, because since I was some people use it for healing past wounds and what have you.
okay,
But I actually set the intention that I wanted to, because we talked about the fact that part of why I'm so fearless is because somewhere along the way I may have actually had an experience that affected me.
I see.
And
Okay.
that's why I became fearless, right? Because I had to survive, right? I was alone, and what happened is, and I remember how scared I was, and even when I was younger, I was really skinny and brown. I was a skinny little brown kid, so I got bullied a bit as well. So there was, so I actually used as a survival mechanism, and I started working out, and I fought a lot when I was young, because and I would never turn down a fight no matter how big they were, because I worked myself up to be so strong, and I learned how to wrestle. My thinking was no matter how big they were, I would eventually get them on the ground, and I would be able to defeat anybody, and 70% of the time it worked. The other 30% I realized that I didn't really know what I was doing, right?
But that survival instinct kicks in, so makes sense. And I love how you said that for the ceremony, you set an intention. And so it really could provide any individual with a variety of healings, but setting the intention, if you could talk further to how that played out for you.
Yeah, I really love what the late Wayne Dyer said about intention. It's that when your intention and is in line with source, and since I'm a believer in God, is in line with God's kind of purpose or plan for you. When that combines, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in the universe. And so, what was really fascinating was that after that, he was he lived for he basically went all the way till November. And something else that I did do that was really incredible was that um, with a special needs child, this 24/7 care, gets really tiring. And what happened is that I decided, because there's a lot of diapers to be changed, a lot of medications to give. It can be overwhelming. And what I did is I did an exercise where I went to his gravesite in the future. And I remember myself feeling like I wish I had one more diaper to change, or another hug, or another kiss from him. And and I did that in a meditation. And then when I came back, I realized that I had, in a sense, time traveled.
Wow.
So every diaper that I changed was like I was getting that. I was actually experiencing that, and I was actually getting that one more hug. And I remember we played the kissers game forever. Like I'd give him a kiss, and they turn around, they come back, give me a kiss, and we it would just go on and on and on. And I just felt like I had actually been able to time travel. It was an incredible exercise that just gave me so much gratitude and helped me to be so mindful with them and so connected.
And again, it's about changing your perspective, and doing that exercise allowed you to change your perspective, where instead of it draining your energy to be changing diapers and all the things that you needed to do, that perspective changed your whole experience.
And then and I know, just for the sake of time, I'll get to the point where he actually passed on November the 14th. Um, he had actually had a seizure earlier in the week, and we're keeping him at home. But we had no choice at that point to go to the hospital because he wasn't gaining consciousness. So we went there, and I went, spent the graveyard shift, which I always do. It's just, and for me, it just, I didn't realize at that time how much that really was going to mean to me. But I got to spend the graveyard shift with him, playing music that I always played, and I got to kiss him goodbye, and his stats were all well. My wife went in the afternoon, and she was a little concerned. She came back, and about roughly about 5 o'clock that afternoon, he was with his favorite respite person, this Asian guy who used to be a doctor, and my wife got the call, and I remember her answering the phone and then saying, her, you could just imagine a mom getting the worst news. and her saying no, no, and then she looked at me and goes, he's passed. And I remember trying to keep it together, like for about 8 seconds. I was thinking I got to be there for my wife. I've got to keep, and then I remembered what I had actually set the intention with, and I went, and everything just came. Tears came, snot came. Um, it's amazing, and I finally learned what soul grieving is. It's something that when I was in my 20s, I went to a funeral where a mom had lost her 15-year-old son to an overdose. And I remember we were in this room and there was a closed casket. And I remember the mom running to the casket, throwing herself on the casket and soul grieving. And I remember the sound that she made. It stuck with me all these years, and I've never heard that sound again. And then I was making that sound. And it was it was even though something's going to happen, you just never thought it'd be today. And so I just cried and cried and cried, and it was so difficult. And I wasn't even able to go to the hospital at the time. Because it just my wife went and a good friend of ours went, and they said what was interesting is that he passed with a nice little smile on his face. That he was just like so peaceful. Everybody there was just so amazed at how peaceful he went, right? And it's interesting because even my mentor, who also happened to be a psychotherapist for over 35 years and did grief counseling, I remember I reached out to him, and I remember he lost his special needs son too. That's why I kind of sought him out. And all he did was hold space for me, and I just cried for about 5-10 minutes. And he just like I said, he just held space for me, and that's what I needed, right? And
I am so sorry for your loss. It is, there are no words to console, and it's, I commend you for having that courage to, and I know this is fresh, to speak about it, but the initiative that you took in order to prepare yourself. And now that he is passed, how has acceptance played a role in your healing?
acceptance was huge because what I realized, I had to accept a few things. Number one, accept the fact that we're generally not prepared to grieve. We when we're younger, we get taught about how we get values and beliefs. Values are principles we live by. Beliefs are statements that we believe to be true based on past experience that all have to do with accumulation and achievement. It's all based on survival and security, but we don't get effectively taught how to deal with loss and even these deep losses. And the other thing I had to accept was that people around me didn't know how to deal with somebody that was hurt. And so I was running a class called Finding a Reason for Being, because my journey through with my son, I found my reason for being. And what happened was that in one of my classes, there was a gentleman who had a loss of his wife to some difficult circumstances, and he had done a grief profile. And the grief profile was things you need to know about me, things I don't need, things that make me feel better. And so what I was able to do, and what I chose to do, was I chose to go public with my grief on social media. I talked about what had happened. I was very I was very in depth about what had happened, and I also put this grief profile on there. Things like I'm sad but not broken. The fact that I've and then when the things that I didn't need, um, it rubbed a few people the wrong way. But I said I don't need any religious cliches or the like that. Oh, he's in a better place. Oh, I know he's in a better place, but I'm still hurt. Right? I didn't need any unsolicited advice. And I also asked people, if you haven't dealt with your own grief, please don't bring it to me, because at that point I was feeling like I just needed to take care of my grief. I don't, even as a coach as well too. I know that if somebody brought their grief, I might go into coach mode. I didn't want to go into coach mode. I just wanted to feel this, and the idea of also like I don't, and what next, and I don't want to hear about what's next. I don't want to. So there was things that I put in there that were very personal, and some people thought that I was kind of pushing them away, but I wasn't. I was just saying that this is what I didn't need right now, and I put what I needed. Long walks. I said I loved coaching. All my clients continued to coach with me. I've just said I love listening to music. So I put things in there that made me feel better.
We teach people how to treat us. So it's uncomfortable for others when they don't have the ability to tell us what youth should be doing. And I mean, with grief in itself, most of us don't know how to approach it, and we don't know that person's needs. So it sounds really powerful that you were able to say, this is what I need and what I don't need, and stand in that without fear of what others are going to say, so that you keep that space open for yourself to be able to grieve how you need to grieve.
And I think that the other thing too that was really important. I even said something in my profile that if we don't have a close relation, there's no need to tell me if I need anything to ask you, because those people that I have connection with, if I do need anything, I do reach out, and I did reach out. So I think that it was is a way, and a lot of like I said, anytime you put yourself out there, some people are going to agree with you, disagree with you. Everybody's going to have their own interpretations of it. But it was my truth to me, and I stood on that. And my responsibility was not how people took it. Some people were really appreciative of it, and they said, "Hey, Walt, thanks a lot for being open about your grief. I just realized that I haven't been feeling my stuff," and I got a lot of positive feedback.
And key thing that you just mentioned, we cannot be responsible for how others perceive our needs that we are putting out there.
And one of the things that I said too is that it was an opportunity for me to be compassionate with people that didn't know any better either, because when you're going through grief, it's so personal. So it's really easy to take things personal. So I had to really think about the fact that we don't know how to support people that are grieving. People are not grief counselors. Right? They're just human beings trying to do the best they can. And whenever somebody close to us passes, people go through their own stuff. There's stuff that comes up for them, and so some people stay away. Other people just want to get really involved in your life. It's just there's so many things. So it's an opportunity to learn compassion for them as well.
What would you say was the most significant lesson you learned, and what message could you leave us with?
Yeah, I think the one thing that was really important, because there's something that happened even after that, is for almost 3 months I soul grieved my son. So in my meditation, I actually felt for almost 3 months, at least every day or every second day, I would get that same emotion of when I first heard the news, and I would cry. I would cry. I would accept it. I would cry. The snot would come. I'd have to clean it through my meditation. The sounds would come, but then there'd always be a peace at the end of my meditation. And I think what I would say is that through this whole process, I was able to change the acronym of fear, where before I really struggled with fear because the acronym of false experiences appearing real. I used to think that as long as I stayed in the moment and didn't go into the future, that I could always be fearless and fear couldn't get to me. But one of the things I realized is by accepting the fear and allowing my mind to go where it went to, I also got to experience emotions that I hadn't experienced before, like courage and bravery. Because I never felt courageous because I would just go and do whatever needed to get done. And I never felt what it's like to be brave. So in doing that, so what happened is the acronym now became, instead of false experiences appearing real, it now became feel everything and rise.
Wow.
And
That's an important message. Absolutely. Fear everything and rise.
because in the end, I think that's what's really important is that we have to understand that we are these spiritual, energetic beings having a human experience of cause and effect. And we're supposed to have emotions. We're just not supposed to stay there. Because emotions are the textures of our lives. It's what allows us to experience. Because if we can't accept the lower level of emotions, like grief, like even depression or sadness, and all the things that come, right? It lowers our joy capacity, and then we can't fully experience joy and happiness because it's just so. I think that it comes with the human experience. It's if we can sit with these lower emotions and breathe through them, when the joy comes, when all that, we'll be able to accept that as well.
And looking at emotions as gifts, they're clues. So our emotions are just clues as to how we're feeling, what we're thinking. And it's not only okay, it's necessary, as you said, in order to be able to move forward. Now, we have the choice of how long we want to stay in them.
Correct. And the choice actually comes from awareness because I believe that with greater awareness comes greater responsibility. Once we're aware of things, and especially like even emotions and thoughts, when we realize we're not our emotions, we're not our thoughts, then it gives rise to that thing called conscious choice. We get to choose. And one of the things that came in my ceremony, I mean, not a ceremony, but recently that actually stopped my grieving is that my son once again showed up in my meditation and he said something to me. He goes, Papa, he goes, I love you. He goes, when you picked me up and I smiled, he goes, I chose you, but you accepted. And what he said to me too, he said something even deeper than this. He said, when you tell people that you can never truly lose anything that's real, I know that I can't lose your love for me, but you can never lose my love for you.
Oh my gosh.
And it was powerful, and it was and he basically just reminded me again, me passing has made you stronger. What I didn't realize that in order to become stronger, I had to become more vulnerable than I've ever been in my whole life. And that went against all my conditioning. And it's affected the way I coach. It's affected the way I show up in the world. It's made me more compassionate, more thoughtful of other people, and it's really helped me to really realize the importance of connection and trust with people.
Walter, I am so grateful for your vulnerability. This is not uh, by any means easy to talk about, and I respect that. And you will be serving so many by your, being vulnerable and being here with us. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. And I would love for you to come back on the show as well.
Well, Leah, I really thank you for having a platform like this because I think that right now there's a lot of loss going on, and grieving could be. It's not just even people we know; it's jobs, it's marriages. There's a lot of loss all over the world. It could be financial loss. It could be, and there's a lot of grieving going on. And I think that you having a platform like this that gives people some tools, some stories, some hope. And I want to leave my last thought with what hope is, right? I love the analogy that hope is like the little bird that knows that dawn is coming, but decides to sing in the darkness anyway.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And thank you for leaving us with that because that is actually what I am trying to do here is show people the other side of darkness and having some wonderful present moments along the journey to happiness and joy, and thank you so much. Thank you. And to all my viewers, thank you so much for being here and allowing us to share your space with us. Thank you.